Hey guys, insight number 3, we're in the book of Jarom. Jarom being the son of Enos, Enos being the son of Jacob, Jacob being Lehi's son. So, great family. These are the small plates. Jarom passes them on to Omni, and then Mormon comes in and gives his editorial of this is why I included them and this is how awesome. So, we'll get to that, but let's look at Jarom. So Jarom says he's going to write a few words, and he says these plates are small, but the things that are written on it for the benefit of our brethren the Lamanites. Now, while he's writing directly to the Lamanites, it's also us. He's writing to us. So basically, I'm writing these to the people who are not here right now, who aren't ready to hear it right now for whatever reason. That includes us. So let's have a read of it. Now he talks off of neglect and stiffness. Look at 3. It says, "Behold, it is expedient that much should be done among this people." There's a whole lot of work to be done. And we could look out at the world today now and say that there's a whole lot of work to be done. There's a lot of people in need. There's a lot of struggling. There's a lot of things that are unmet. Things that could be easily quite fixed if somebody just got off their butts and did them. But it's not always that easy. I can't just get a plane over to Africa and feed a bunch of people. For one thing, the food is going to make them sick. They need different medical care. I don't have a way to get over there. There's lots of things. This comes back to your sphere of influence. Do what you can where you are. Anyway, there's much to be done. Because of the hardness of their hearts and the deafness of their ears and the blindness of their minds and the stiffness of their necks, nevertheless God is exceedingly merciful unto them and has not yet swept them off the face of the land, because he promised Enos he wouldn't, giving them ample opportunity, time and time again. And eventually he needs to, because their opportunities are over. But they kind of do it to themselves. Like, if they weren't at war, if they had decided not to be at war, it would have been different. So it's a whole thing. But the lesson we learn is to not be in that place. And then talks down that they were, in 6, talks that the Lamanites were exceeding more numerous than there were Nephites, that they loved murder and would drink the blood of beasts. So they're not exactly who you want to go help or hang out with or invite over to dinner. But it came to pass in 7, that they many times came to battle against this, but our kings and our leaders were mighty men in the faith of the Lord. So there were good people there. So there were a bunch of people living in this series of cities and places that were just not ready to hear anything other than what they wanted to do. But they still had mighty men leading them. They had good prophets and good kings leading them, ones that stood with God. He said, so that we withstood the Lamanites and swept them away out of our lands and began to fortify our cities or whatever places of our inheritance. So, but they're constantly being attacked, and that's not fun. But these people aren't even interested, and so much to the point of we just don't care. They're not too far gone, because there's always a way out, and they weren't necessarily bad. They just weren't adhering to gospel things. They weren't praying. They weren't making any effort. They just weren't even interested. But look at the mighty. That mighty. Who is mighty to you? Because that mighty men led them. And down in 11 again, you'll see, because they go out and they teach a whole bunch of people. They were not prepared to meet the Lamanites. In verse 9, and thus being prepared to meet the Lamanites after they'd done all the things that they could, they did not prosper against us, but the word of the Lord was verified, which he spake unto our fathers, saying that inasmuch as you will keep my commandments, you shall prosper in the land. And their desire to prosper in the land was good. And what is prospering, and what does it mean between what we think it is and what God thinks it is? Because the Lord's saying, you're going to prosper how I think you'll prosper, as in I'll protect you, I'll make sure you have enough, and things will be okay. For us thinking prospering, we're thinking huge house, lots of land, servants, not having to work. It's a different vibe. So keep that in mind as well, and we'll continue talking. In 11 it says, wherefore the prophets and the priests and the teachers did labor diligently, exhorting with all long suffering the people to diligence, teaching the law of Moses and the intent for which it was given. So what was the law of Moses for? To make you feel miserable? No, to focus you on Christ. Then it says, there's a word again, persuading them to look forward unto the Messiah and believe in him to come, as though he already was, and after this manner did they teach them. And it goes on to say that, they did a bit of that, and more time passed, and Jarom's not going to write anymore. He's going to pass these plates on, and that's his portion of the story. But the question comes up here, being that these people aren't interested and that he continued to look out for them and caused them to soften their hearts and to learn his way of prospering. So what's different about prosper in a worldly sense to the sense of what Jesus means by prosper? What does Jesus mean when he says prosper? Jesus would mean things like you'll have your needs met, and you'll be okay, and it might not be exactly how you want it, but you'll find a way, and I'll be there with you, and we'll figure it out. Now, worldly prosper, there's like winning the lottery, having all the cars and stuff, but does it actually make you happier? Which one do you actually need, and which one can actually be quite miserable? So keep that in mind. Think of that when you're teaching. But the reason they were mostly protected and were allowed these many chances is because there was good people amongst them and good people leading them. So as long as there's that, but try and be in the good people. So verse 11, as I said, speaks of prophets, priests, and teachers who labored diligently, exhorting and persuading all to follow Christ. So these were the mighty people that persuaded them, that changed their life trajectory, that kept them good, and helped those that weren't wanting to listen to actually listen and to start changing their ways and repenting. So who's mighty to you? Who's done that for you in your life? Who's been those leaders that have caused you to just go, yeah, and stuck with it, and you've seen their example working, and you're happy to follow that? I don't know what there is to say more on how to describe that. Some leaders are absolute crap. And that's kind of just the end of it, and it's their journey, and others are just incredible, and others you just admire because you see the struggle that is real, and you know that they're doing their best, and you support them in that. So who is mighty to you? Who's a mighty leader to you? What's that stand out as? I've already told you about many of mine, but even the one bishop I had that was just a bit younger than me when he was called, and I was like, I don't know how I felt about that. I've always had bishops older than me, and generally older people have a little more of that respect already, just because they're older than you. They already start off just a little bit more. Oh, he didn't, because he was younger, and he was my friend's husband, and I don't really know him that well at that point, because they were only recently, sort of in the last few years, married. But I got to know him, and I got to serve with him as he was bishop, and I got to serve as primary president. And after a few years of doing that, I'm like, I would follow him anywhere. If he said, we need to do this, and I've prayed about it, I would totally believe it, because I know he's a man of God. He is mighty. He's actually small in stature, not large in stature like Nephi, but he's incredible faith, and he's so caring, and there are things he struggled with too, but I could see those things, and I was like, hey, I'm strong at that. I got that. Let's work at this. And he's still a really great guy and my friend, and honestly, he's just one of those people. One of the other people who's mighty to me and has always been known as a man of God, I know he's a man of God, he's fantastic, is Elder John Higgins, who just got called as one of our Area 70s. And I know he's like, I've always recognized him as this one. He was in my ward when I was a little kid, and I was like, he knows Jesus. I know he does. And there's things about him that are just incredible, and he's always so kind and loving and insightful, and he is a mighty man as well. He's mighty. Now, those are just two. There's women as well, and I could talk about a whole bunch of them. But who is it to you? And have you told them this? Have you told them how you feel? And it's hard to sometimes. But you could even just say, hey, I've been reading this, and it struck me that you were one of those people for me. It would mean the world to them. They work so hard. So, maybe reach out. But yeah, and what manner did they teach you? How did they teach you? And how can you be more mighty? And the key words that I love in all of this are persuade and influence. And today, that is known more as love, share, and invite. And you've probably heard that a lot of times. So if you're thinking, I don't know how to persuade, I don't know how to influence, you just love, share, and invite. It's not that hard. Read those principles. Go to the church website. Love, share, invite. It's huge. Big movement. It's great. All right. Hang around. We're going to go over to the book of Omni. I'll see you there.